The world is not fair. It never has been, and it never will be. And before you think this is pessimism, understand this is simply realism. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you stop waiting for fairness to save you and start building real strength. Since childhood, you've been fed a comforting story. Work hard, play by the rules, treat people well, and life will reward you. But look around. Is that what you actually see? Are the most ethical people the ones winning? Are the most deserving the ones rising? Or do you notice something else entirely? People who understand the game as it really is, not as we wish it were. You've probably worked hard, stayed honest, played fair, and watched someone who didn't do any of that move ahead of you. That creates frustration. It creates bitterness. It makes you feel powerless. But Machiavelli understood exactly why this happens. He didn't write about how life should be. He wrote about how people actually behave, unpredictable, self-interested, changeable, the moment pressure or temptation appears. He said, men are ungrateful, fickle liars and deceivers, not as an insult, but as a strategic observation. When you understand human nature realistically instead of idealistically, you stop expecting fairness to protect you. You stop relying on others' sense of justice, and instead learn to rely on your own capability. The belief in fairness creates a specific kind of weakness. It makes you reactive. You sit around waiting for recognition instead of building undeniable value. You hope others will do what's right, instead of preparing for what they're likely to do. This video is about breaking that dependency, about understanding why relying on fairness makes you weak, and how adopting a more Machiavellian understanding of reality can make you sharper, stronger, and far more effective. By the end, you won't be asking, "Why isn't life fair to me?" You'll be asking the only question that matters. How do I win even when life isn't fair? 1. Fairness is a comforting illusion that weakens you. Fairness feels good to believe in. It makes life seem predictable. It tells you that effort automatically leads to reward and that justice always comes back around. But believing that fairness governs outcomes leads you into a mental trap. It makes you dependent. Psychologists call this an external locus of control. The belief that your success is primarily based on how others treat you. If I'm treated fairly, I'll succeed. If I'm not, I won't. That mindset is poison, because it gives everyone else power over you. Think about how this plays out. You kill yourself on a project, but someone else gets the credit. You follow every rule at work, but the promotion goes to the person who socializes better. You deliver results, but someone with better connections gets the opportunity. Each time this happens, you feel the sting of unfairness. But here's the Machiavellian truth. The more you expect fairness, the easier you are to manipulate. Machiavelli wrote, "He who seeks to deceive will always find someone who allows himself to be deceived." If you depend on fairness, you become easy to trick, easy to exploit, easy to predict. Fairness dependence creates 3 major weaknesses. Emotional volatility. Your mood rises and falls based on how others treat you. Resentment. Every time life isn't fair, you take it personally and act from frustration. Passivity. You wait for recognition instead of creating your own opportunities. This doesn't mean you should be unethical or abandon your values. It means your ethics cannot be your strategy. Being ethical is good, but expecting ethical treatment in return is where you lose power. The antidote? Capability dependence. You stop relying on fairness and start relying on your ability to create results. You shift from, "Do they treat me justly?" to, "What can I do to win regardless?" That shift is uncomfortable because it forces you to take full responsibility. It's easier to blame unfairness. It's harder to ask, what skill do I need? What strategy do I lack? What did this unfair moment teach me? But this is how you transform. People who depend on fairness stay powerless. People who depend on capability become unstoppable. So the next time you run into unfair treatment, don't ask, "Why me?" Ask, "What can I learn from this? What weakness in me was exposed? What capability must I build so this never affects me again?" You can't control fairness, but you can control strength. And the world respects strength far more than fairness. Most people walk through life assuming others will behave rationally, morally, and predictably. They expect gratitude for their help, loyalty in return for loyalty, honesty because they've been honest. But Machiavelli didn't operate with those assumptions, and neither should you. 2. Understanding human nature creates strategic advantage. People aren't consistent. They aren't purely good or purely bad. They are a mixture of impulses, self-interest, fear, pride, greed, insecurity, and whichever one gets triggered is the one that takes over. Machiavelli saw this clearly. People will act virtuously when it's easy, and selfishly when it's beneficial. And here's where most people fail. They expect others to act according to principles instead of incentives. But the people who truly succeed, the ones who never get blindsided, betrayed, or exploited, are the ones who study human nature as it is, not as they wish it to be. This isn't a call to become cynical. It's a call to become prepared. When you understand human nature, you gain 3 massive advantages. Advantage 1. You can predict behavior. Others don't see coming. People reveal themselves in patterns. A person who talks badly about others will talk badly about you. A person who takes shortcuts will eventually shortcut you. A person who avoids responsibility will hand you their failures. These aren't mysteries, they're repeating loops. But if you expect fairness, you ignore those loops and hope for the best. Machiavelli didn't hope, he observed. Because when you understand why people act the way they do, you can anticipate their moves before they make them. Advantage 2. You can shape situations more effectively. Human behavior responds to incentives far more than ideology. People are honest when honesty benefits them. They're loyal when loyalty is rewarded. They're fair when unfairness costs them something. Once you understand this, you stop appealing to people's morals and start adjusting the environment. Make honesty easier than deception. Make loyalty mutually beneficial. Make betrayal costly. This isn't manipulation. It's creating conditions where the best outcomes benefit everyone, including you. Advantage 3. You stop taking unfair behavior personally. When someone betrays you, lies, disrespects you, or takes advantage of you, you stop asking, "How could they do this?" and instead ask, "What made this behavior beneficial for them?" This removes emotion from the equation and replaces it with clarity, because taking things personally keeps you small. Understanding behavior keeps you powerful. Machiavelli wasn't telling you to assume the worst in everyone. He was telling you to be ready for the worst and act wisely when it appears. 3. Complaining about unfairness signals and creates weakness. Here's something most people never realize. The moment you complain about unfair treatment, you reveal your powerlessness. You announce to the world, "What others do controls me." And whether people admit it or not, they treat you differently after that. Complaining about unfairness serves 3 emotional purposes. It releases frustration. It seeks sympathy. It tries to guilt others into fairness. But none of these create respect. None of these create strength. None of these improve your position. Complaining doesn't change the situation, it just exposes your lack of control. And the people around you, friends, colleagues, bosses, strangers, they absorb that signal. Some will pity you. Others will quietly downgrade you. A few will even take advantage of you. Why? Because complaining is the opposite of power. Power is measured by how you respond, not by how much you protest. Machiavelli wrote that small offenses provoke revenge, while larger decisive acts end the conflict. The same applies here. Constant whining about small injustices makes you look weak, predictable, and easily provoked. Strategic, decisive action, on the other hand, earns respect. Let's be clear, this doesn't mean you tolerate everything. It means you stop broadcasting your feelings about it. When you complain, 3 things happen. 1. You reinforce a victim identity inside yourself. Every time you say it's unfair, your brain hears, "I am powerless." 2. You give others a script to manipulate you. They now know exactly what frustrates you. 3. You waste energy that could be used to change the situation. Complaining is emotional noise. Strategy is silent calculation. So what do Machiavellian thinkers do instead? They analyze. They adapt. They reposition themselves. They ask, what caused this? What weakness did this expose in me? What can I do so it never happens again? What action strengthens my position long term? No drama, no venting, no emotional parades. Strategic silence is more powerful than emotional noise. Because silence makes people wonder. Complaints make people dismiss you. Your new rule: don't complain about unfairness. Correct your position so it can't touch you again. 4. Build personal power through competence, not entitlement. If you want real, lasting power, the type that no unfair boss, no corrupt system, no jealous coworker can take away, you must build it on one thing: competence. Not hope, not fairness, not deserving, not entitlement. Power built on entitlement is fragile. Power built on competence is unbreakable. Here's the trap most people fall into. They believe they should be rewarded because they worked hard, followed the rules, or behaved morally. They expect good things to come simply because they deserve them. But the world does not distribute rewards based on goodness. It distributes rewards based on value. Machiavelli knew this long before modern psychology proved it. He wrote that those who rely on the goodwill of others build on mud. Why? Because goodwill dries up fast. But your ability to produce results, real results, doesn't. Competence creates options. Entitlement creates dependencies. Look at how this plays out. Instead of asking, "Why didn't I get the promotion?" ask, "What skills would make me unavoidable next time?" Instead of thinking, "People should treat me better," ask, "What strengths make people naturally treat me with respect?" Instead of believing, "I'm owed an opportunity," ask, "How do I become the person opportunities chase?" This is the mindset shift that turns victims into strategists. Competence-based power works because it compounds. Every skill you develop, every problem you solve, every result you produce adds weight to your presence. People begin to rely on you, trust you, and turn to you not because they like you, but because they need you. And needing you is far more powerful than liking you. That doesn't happen when you lean on entitlement. Entitlement makes you wait. Competence makes you move. So what does competence actually look like? You understand your craft better than anyone else. You learn skills others avoid because they're difficult. You develop emotional intelligence to read people and situations. You know how to think strategically, not just react instinctively. You create systems so your results are consistent, not accidental. This isn't about perfection. It's about reliability. People respect reliability more than talent. They trust consistency more than charisma. And they value capability more than fairness. Entitlement makes you think you've already arrived. Competence reminds you there's always another level to learn. And here's the beautiful part. Competence reduces your vulnerability. Every skill you develop becomes armor. Every capability you sharpen becomes leverage. Every strength you build becomes something no one can take away from you, no matter how unfair the world becomes. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He knew power lies not in expecting the world to treat you fairly, but in becoming someone who can win even when it doesn't. 5. Strategic thinking beats moral outrage. Every time when you face unfairness, your first reaction is emotional. That's wrong. That's unfair. I shouldn't be treated like this. And that reaction is human. But Machiavelli would tell you that reacting morally, even when you're right, usually weakens your position. Because moral outrage focuses on how things should be. Strategic thinking focuses on how things are. When you lead with emotion, you give away the frame. When you lead with strategy, you take the frame back. Most people get caught in the righteousness trap. They think that being morally correct will force others to change. But in power dynamics, being right rarely matters. Being effective does. Strategic thinking does not mean abandoning your values. It means acting in ways that actually achieve them. Let's take an example. Someone at work steals your idea. Moral outrage says, confront them publicly, expose the injustice. Strategic thinking says, document your work, strengthen alliances, position yourself so next time the idea can't be stolen because you've already tied your name to it. One response feels good in the moment. The other one protects your long-term power. Strategic people don't react emotionally. They assess motivations, analyze incentives, predict consequences, choose the action that improves their position over time. Machiavelli said that everyone sees what you appear to be, but few know what you truly are. This is why strategy beats outrage. When you respond with strategy, you hide your anger and move with precision. When you respond with emotion, you reveal your weakness and give others information to use against you. This doesn't mean you never confront injustice. It means you confront it in ways that strengthen your position, not weaken it. Sometimes the strongest response is silence. Sometimes it's withdrawing support. Sometimes it's a calm, direct conversation. Sometimes it's waiting for the right moment and striking with perfect timing. What strategic thinkers never do is react impulsively, because emotional reactions create chaos. Strategic reactions create influence. Remember, outrage satisfies your ego. Strategy secures your future. 6. Create your own standards of success. If you want to break free from the emotional roller coaster of unfairness, you must stop basing your success on external validation. Nothing weakens a person faster than measuring their worth by how others treat them, reward them, or recognize them. Machiavelli understood something that most people never learn. The moment your sense of achievement depends on others, you become controllable, and that is the beginning of all weakness. Most people live their lives trapped inside someone else's scoreboard. They judge themselves based on promotions, praise, likes, compliments, awards, and approval. They let their motivation rise and fall, depending on whether others validate them. But here's the truth. External standards are unstable, inconsistent, and often unfair. Internal standards are steady, reliable, and fully under your control. Let's break this down. When you rely on external validation, you feel successful only when others reward you. You feel discouraged when recognition doesn't come. You become emotionally reactive to how others behave. You become dependent on a system you don't control. This is the fastest way to become a fragile version of yourself. Good only when praised, weak when ignored. But when you create your own internal standards, everything changes. Internal standards are based on the skills you develop, the value you create, the problems you solve, the growth you achieve, the goals you set for yourself. This is how strong, self-directed individuals operate. They don't chase applause. They don't bend under unfair judgment. They don't crumble when others overlook them, because their sense of achievement comes from within. Machiavelli wrote that the person who becomes master of their own destiny is feared by all who depend on chance. In modern terms, the person who sets their own standards is immune to unfair treatment. Let's go deeper. Imagine two people. Person A works hard, does great things, and constantly waits for others to notice. Every time they're overlooked, they feel crushed. Every time someone else gets credit, they lose motivation. Person B does the same amount of work, but judges their success by the quality of the work itself. They track their own progress. They define their own milestones. They're proud, not because someone praised them, but because they know they improved. Person A depends on fairness. Person B depends on capability. Guess who becomes stronger? Guess who becomes more resilient? Guess who becomes unstoppable? Not the one who waits for validation, but the one who creates their own. When you break free from external scorekeeping, something incredible happens. You stop taking things personally. You stop measuring your worth by recognition. You stop being emotionally controlled by others' opinions. You gain clarity, direction, and stability. This is the beginning of psychological independence. And here's where most people get it wrong. They think internal standards mean lowering expectations. In reality, internal standards are often higher than external ones. Because now you're no longer performing for applause, you're performing for excellence. You're not chasing validation, you're chasing mastery. You're not hoping someone sees your worth. You're building a version of yourself so powerful that silence from others no longer matters. But how do you create internal standards? Start with these steps. 1. Identify what matters to you, not what others expect. What skills do you want? What results do you want to produce? What values do you want to embody? 2. Break your goals into measurable actions. Instead of be successful, focus on specific metrics. How many hours did I improve my craft this week? How many problems did I solve? What progress did I make today? 3. Set a schedule to review your progress, weekly or monthly. Evaluate yourself not based on praise, but based on growth. 4. Celebrate your internal milestones. Finish a project, level up a skill, make a small improvement. Reward yourself not publicly, but privately. This is how real confidence is built. Not from being seen, but from seeing yourself grow. Your emotions stabilize, your decisions improve, your resilience sharpens. Suddenly, unfairness loses its power over you. Because how others judge you becomes irrelevant to your success, where most people fail. Most people get stuck because they let unfairness dictate their self-worth. Someone ignores their effort. They feel worthless. Someone doesn't recognize their contribution. They feel invisible. Someone rewards the wrong person. They feel defeated. Why? Because they rely on a system they don't control. But internal standards break this dependency. When you know what you're building, when you know where you're going, when your worth comes from progress, not praise, no unfair treatment can shake you. Machiavelli didn't want you to become emotionless. He wanted you to become unshakable, not by rejecting goodness, but by rejecting dependency. The strategic advantage of internal standards. Internal standards don't just make you mentally strong. They make you strategically powerful. When your motivation is intrinsic, you're consistent whether people notice or not. You're immune to manipulation through praise or neglect. You're harder to control because you aren't hungry for approval. You're more focused because you're not waiting for validation. People who rely on external validation are easily steered. People with internal standards are impossible to move unless they choose to. The world respects someone whose center cannot be shaken. Someone who keeps growing even when ignored. Someone who keeps moving even without applause. Someone who keeps improving even when others are unfair. That person is dangerous. That person is free. And that person can be you if you stop borrowing your worth from others. We've spent this entire journey dismantling the illusion of fairness and replacing it with something stronger, something far more reliable: strategic strength. Now, in this final part, we bring everything together not as theory, but as a framework you can carry into every challenge, every interaction, every setback you face from this point forward. 7. Your power begins the moment you stop expecting fairness. The biggest transformation in your life won't come from learning a new skill, changing your environment, or waiting for someone to finally treat you right. It will begin the second you stop expecting fairness and start relying on your own capability. When you let go of the belief that the world should treat you fairly, you immediately reclaim something vital: your control. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you start asking, "What advantage does this reveal? What weakness must I strengthen? What pattern should I never ignore again?" Unfairness stops feeling personal and becomes strategic information. This is how Machiavelli wanted you to live, not as a cynic, but as a strategist. Someone who sees the truth clearly and acts with precision. Let's tie together the final principles of this evolution. Stop waiting for the world to reward you. Most people live in a passive state. They tell themselves, "I'll succeed once people recognize my value. Things will get better when the system becomes fair. Someone will eventually appreciate what I do." But this mindset is a trap. The world doesn't organize itself around your effort. It organizes itself around leverage. Strategic individuals don't wait to be chosen. They build themselves into someone who cannot be ignored. They create opportunities through competence, discipline, and positioning. They don't sit around waiting for better conditions. They learn to win in the conditions they have. Waiting is dependence. Strategic action is freedom. Stop complaining. Start decoding. Unfair treatment is not a dead end. It's a message. If someone disrespects you, there was a boundary missing. If someone exploits you, there was a blind spot in your awareness. If someone outmaneuvers you, there was a skill you needed. If someone lies to you, there was a pattern you ignored. Complaining blocks these lessons. Strategic reflection reveals them. Instead of emotional outbursts, ask, "What system allowed this to happen? How do I prevent this pattern from repeating? What capability would make me immune to this kind of situation?" Every unfair moment teaches you how to become stronger, if you're willing to study it instead of reacting to it. Machiavelli wasn't glorifying cruelty. He was teaching resilience. He was teaching you how to extract power from situations that once would have broken you. Stop depending on praise. Start building undeniable competence. Recognition is unpredictable. Praise is inconsistent. Validation is unstable. But competence is permanent. A capable person may be ignored temporarily, but they will never be ignored forever. Competence forces people to pay attention. Competence creates demand. Competence earns respect even in unfair systems. When you develop undeniable capability, whether in leadership, technical skills, emotional intelligence, persuasion, or strategic thinking, your value becomes self-evident. People cannot overlook someone who consistently solves problems. But when you depend on praise, you crumble when people don't notice. You lose motivation when recognition stops. You become emotionally controlled by others' opinions. When you depend on competence, you grow steadily regardless of external noise. You build confidence rooted in reality, not validation. You become someone who thrives even when everyone else doubts you. Fairness may not reward you, but competence eventually forces the world to. Strategic thinking outperforms emotional outrage. When something unfair happens, emotional outrage is the instinctual reaction. And yes, it feels justified. It feels righteous. It feels strong. But reactions don't change outcomes. Strategies do. Strategic thinking doesn't ignore your feelings, it guides them. Instead of saying, "This isn't fair," the strategic mind says, "What move strengthens my position long term? What response increases my influence instead of reducing it? How do I adjust the structures so this can't harm me again?" Strategic thinkers understand that the goal isn't to win the emotional battle, it's to win the real one. And often, that means staying silent when others expect anger, repositioning instead of arguing, building leverage instead of fighting, observing instead of reacting. When you master this, unfairness doesn't frustrate you. It exposes opportunities. Create a life based on internal standards, not external approval. The final step in becoming immune to unfairness is shifting your identity from external scorekeeping to internal mastery. When you judge yourself by your progress, your discipline, your development, your ability to create value, your ability to handle difficulty, you become psychologically untouchable. No unfair boss can steal your confidence. No lack of recognition can stop your growth. No disrespect can derail your purpose. Because you no longer need the world to validate you, you validate yourself. This is what self-command looks like. This is what internal strength feels like. This is what real Machiavellian resilience produces. A person who can stand firm even when the world gives them no applause. A person who is driven by purpose, not praise. By strategy, not emotion. By capability, not fairness. Your final declaration. So here's the final truth. You can continue waiting for fairness, or you can start building power. You can complain about circumstances, or you can learn how to rise above them. You can depend on others, or you can become someone others depend on. Your transformation begins with a single commitment. I choose strategic strength over fairness. Say it, write it, live it. Because when you stop begging for fair treatment and start developing real capability, you become someone the world cannot break, and someone the world must eventually respect. This is how you rise in an unfair world, not through hope, not through complaints, but through strategy, competence, and inner command. Your new life begins now.